Alrighty, hello everybody, welcome back. Omega Given here. We're on lesson 2 of our Python tutorials and stuff. Last lesson, we went over basically the 3 different types of strings you can make with double quotes, single quote, or triple 3 double quotes in a row, which makes doc strings. And we also went over some numbers, floats and integers to be specific. But we want to go over a little bit of lists and dictionaries today. We're kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of skipping some things. I think people will go to if-else statements next, but I kind of want to go to lists and dictionaries because I feel like you can do lists and dictionaries pretty well, even when you understand these things. So let's move on to lists and dictionaries. So what is a list? Well, a list is basically how would you put it? It's basically a bunch of variables put into one chunk. That's basically what a list is. A dictionary is basically a key and a value. That's actually terms that you'll hear a lot if you're in college or like taking classes on this. It's key value pairs. That's like what we call it. Meaning, in a dictionary, say, if you look up in a normal like word, like English dictionary, you have a term that you're trying to look up the spelling of or whatever, and then it has the definition. So key is the actual word itself, and then definition is the value of that term, basically. So that's what a dictionary is in what do we call this in Python? Let me comment out with some of our previous lesson stuff, and we'll just keep moving on because we might come back and show you a little bit of things from these strings above. So how do we make a list? We're going to say list one. So this is a variable of a list. So it's going to be this, close brackets. That creates a list in Python. So if we print out this list, print list one, we will then, if we run it, it will give us the brackets. It's an empty list. And we can check that we can check things or attributes about the list by doing length or len, which is length of that list. And it'll probably say 0. Yep, it is 0 because it's empty list. Now, if we put a number in here, let's say 1, let's see what happens. Length of the list is now 1. Actually, that's a little misconstrued. Let's call it 10. So because we're saying what the length of the list is. The length of the list is 1. But how do we get that value out of this list? Let's think about that. So I'm going to comment this out because this is going to come in later. We're going to do print list 1. And then what we can do is use brackets right next to it. So we use the equal sign to assign this list to list 1. But if we have brackets next to the variable, it's basically asking what is that point in the list, whatever number you put in here. So we're asking for the index, aka where in that list are you trying to find the variable of. Now, in programming languages, or most programming languages, indexes, like where things are in a list, if you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the actual first index, the first thing in the list, is in position 0. Not position 1, it's position 0. So it starts from 0. It's kind of like a joke in like a lot of programming where like, oh, things don't start from 1, they start from 0. I don't know. Something like that. So if we put 0 in here, we will print the value 10 in our list. So you can see we printed the value 10 in our list. What happens if we put the index of 2 when there is no index? Let's run this and see what happens. Here we are, list index out of range. So it's giving us an error because the list is a list of 1. There's no other indexes and you're trying to access something that's not there. So it throws a fit. Python throws a fit. It doesn't like that. So how can we maybe remedy this? Well, we just ask 0 or like find that index, or we can make our list bigger to match it because maybe we want a value 10, 20, 30. So how you coding convention wise, which is our grammar, you kind of want to put spaces after these, just like in English. But basically, a list can be separated by commas. That's basically how, like, the values within them can be separated by commas. Now, this is a list of integers. What happens if we make these doubles? That's actually a good question here. What if we did 0.10 or 0.15 or 1.15, 0.10, 20.15 as one of the variables? Let's try this. Let's try that. So this works, apparently. This is 10, 20.15, and 30. Even though this is an integer, this is a float, and this is an integer, it can still print different variables. And you can see it's printing just fine. But what are the type? Does this change the type of it? Because this works in Python, but other programming languages, it might throw a fit. Because in other programming languages, you can only have lists of one type of variable. But this is having multiple types. So let's check if it has multiple types. So let's check what the type is for index 1, which is our 20.15. It is a float. Okay, we expected that because 20.15 is a float. Well, let's check index 0, which is 10. It is an int. So this is a list storing integers and floating point numbers. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, well, that's interesting. What if we wanted to do a list of strings? So let's do list2 equals brackets, string 1, comma, string 2, comma, I'm using double quotes, but let's do single quotes. Yeah, let's try single quotes, string 3. So let's try, actually, okay, let's do this. Let's try to put this into single quote, and let's put this into a triple quote, a doc string. Let's make this a doc string. Let's see what happens now. So let's just try to do list2, and then brackets, let's just access the first value in this list. Let's run that, and it says string 1. It's accessing string 1. Okay, let's access string 2, like the first, this point in the list, string 2. Okay, let's access the third point in the list. Oh, interesting. Oh, actually, that's right. I typed 3, but this is 0, 1, 2. This is index 2 of the list. So if I run that, that's string 3. All right, so let's do the type. Let's check types of these things. Type of this variable. Because this is just good understanding of how you can change mutable things. It's a type of a string. All right, that's right. Type of 1 is a type of a string. Type and a 0 is a type of a string. So yeah, even though we use these different symbols, they all work in Python. So what can we mix strings and numbers, because those are fairly different objects? So let's try that. List3 equals string. Let's say string 1, and then let's call this one a number like 10, and then let's say. Ooh, I got a fun idea. Can you put a list inside of a list? So let's put a list of list1. Let's put list1 in here. So our first index, or our 0 index, is string 1. Our first index is 10, or integer 10, and our third index is a list. Actually, we don't need to put brackets right here. Is this list. We can put variables into a section of a thing. Let's try this. This might throw an error. It's always fun to just try these things. So let's print list3. This might throw an error, but let's try it. No, it does work. Ooh. So most programming languages can't do this. Python can do this because Python's a very mutable language. You can change variables to be anything you want. You can even change a variable from 10 to a object that contains classes and whatever stuff. We'll go over that stuff later. But yeah, it does all that stuff. That's kind of interesting. So what if we want to, okay, so we got list3. Let's access that first value in the list, which is string 1. Okay. Let's access the second value in that list, string, which is 10. That's 10. And then let's access the list. If we print this, it prints out the list. But what if you want to get the first, or like the 0 index, the first index, or the second index in here? We can put another set of brackets right here. So let's put 0, because we want to access maybe this 10. So let's run that, and we get 10 now. Interesting. But if we go back and we want to do list 3's first index, which is 10, and do 0, what's it going to do? Error. Int object is not subscribable. Subscribable means basically it cannot iterate into it and check it. That's basically what subscribable means on a high level. Some people can comment down below the real meaning of it. But that's basically what it means on the surface level. So 10 can't do it. But let's try something interesting. Technically, in Python, and I think a lot of other languages, strings are actually secretly lists. It's a list of those characters. So if we have a string, our first variable in this list is string 1, what if we just want this S letter? Well, so it's the 0 part index, and we want to just get this S. It prints S. Okay, let's print 2. the second index. So this is 0, 1, 2. So this will print R, right? It prints R, and so on. What if we want to print just a section? This is going a little deep here. What if we want to print a section of our list? I think it's this. I haven't done this in a while, but I think it's just colon. There. So it prints from the second index, 0, 1, 2, so R, and then onward. So it does ring 1 instead of string 1. That is something that's very interesting you can do in strings in Python. What if we wanted just a section of our list? So we'll say we wanted 0, 1, 2, so R to G. 3, 4, 5. So let's do 5 right here. RIN. So this shows 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is not inclusive. So it's inclusive on the first number, but it's exclusive on the second number. It's not including the G. We would have to go up to G, or up to the sixth index, which is a space, to get that G in there. So that second number is not including that number. It's before that number. So 2, 2, and that number, not including that number. So that's kind of something you can do with strings and lists. This is already 11 minutes, so I think I'll cut out dictionaries to our next episode. But I think this is really fun little lesson for lists and what you can do with lists in Python, because they're very immutable, changeable. You can do a lot of things with them. You can even put objects in them, but we'll do that in a later lesson when we get to the objects and classes and whatnot. But yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm gonna do questionnaire kind of videos later on. If you have questions, I'll probably blob them all into a lesson 2.1 or whatever, and I'll answer questions. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.